Hey, welcome to CryptoCoach365, day 86, I believe. Murray's in a shot again. He came by, wanted to snuggle, so I figured I'd keep him in a shot. So, anyway, not much happening today. It's kind of a slow week, I guess. This Friday, I'll actually be traveling to Chicago to go to a business coaching event with JT Fox again. Otherwise, slow week because there's really not much to do with real estate. Partly because with Bitcoin prices going down a little bit, my funds are getting a little bit too limited. Not so much where they're not enough, but it's getting to a point where I really want to be very frugal with how many houses I buy. I mean, yeah, it's kind of weird to say, like, usually when you're frugal, you don't go to a restaurant or you don't buy yourself a cup of coffee. In my case, me being frugal is deciding to hold off on buying entire $100,000 properties. And mainly it's not that I think Bitcoin is going to keep going down. It's that with my bigger project, I need all the funds that I can get. So I'm kind of holding off and saving those. Also, I need to focus more on, as I mentioned, hard money lenders or private lenders, which would be borrowing money that is not backed by my Bitcoin, but by the property itself. And one main thing I'm waiting for is 2 properties that I have bought with my own collateral loans to actually finish getting fixed up, and they are getting close. At this point, I'm getting pictures of houses have been torn down from the inside, and now they're being built up. So hopefully by the end of the month, they will be finished and will be ready to go on the market. And then once I actually sell them, I can get my money back and then focus on continuing to expand real estate. Regarding Bitcoin though, kind of an interesting, weird quirk I just recently thought about, that it's existed for a while. It also has to do with not having money, but in the sense that people who own Bitcoin sometimes lose their money. And actually what happens is there has been a lot of people who bought Bitcoin who never really believed in it. And after, for a long time, it kind of sat around. They bought it at pennies literally, and it just sat around doing not much, and then maybe it went up to $1 and they still didn't really think much of it. And then they threw away their computers or their hard drives or their thumb drive sticks or whatever. So it all went in the landfill, and then 5-10 years later, well, almost 10, many years later, all of a sudden what they spent maybe a couple of $100s on is now worth millions of dollars. Soon enough might be even worth $100 million. And that kind of creates an interesting interesting situation with regards to just a deflationary currency like Bitcoin in general, in that the more it grows, the more valuable that information becomes. So we know that there's a hard drive. Well, we knew about 3 or 4 years ago that there is a hard drive with $5 million worth of Bitcoin someplace in a landfill in some European city. I forgot the name of it, but that's where one of the hard drives ended up being thrown away too. And back then, $1 million would be pretty considerable to find, but as far as I know, nobody actually invested in trying to find that specific hard drive in a landfill. However, as Bitcoin price keeps growing, it's up to 7,000, and it'll go up to 20,000, then 100,000, then more. What'll happen is that that particular landfill, that tiny little piece of information hidden someplace in that massive, basically a needle in a massive haystack, would become worth in the hundreds of millions of dollars and maybe even billions of dollars. And then at that point, it might actually become a worthy investment to buy the entire landfill and start digging through the entire thing bit by bit, looking for that one specific hard drive, because all the work of actually digging it up and searching for it would be paid for by what's on that hard drive and then some. So kind of an interesting dynamic, that's the word I was looking for, dynamic with regards to these kind of things, where if you price something in Bitcoin and have it be fixed, such as you lose a hard drive with a certain number of Bitcoins, that the value of that ends up growing over time and eventually makes it more and more profitable to actually do whatever it takes to retrieve that value, because well, rather it becomes be worth more than the cost of retrieving that value. And that actually doesn't apply just to these situations where there's a loss. There's also some people actually hid Bitcoin in specific, like there's it came out that somebody's been hiding Bitcoins in a massively multiplayer online video game. People have been hiding them in private keys and papers around GPS located stashes, just kind of all over the world. And as time grows, those tiny little amounts which were like, $5 here, $10 there, maybe, over time are going to keep growing and growing and growing until they actually become real, like, treasures that somebody can actually find and make a whole lot of money on. So it's kind of an interesting thought I had about that. There's also another kind of a darker side to this too, with regards to, well, I'm not going to go into details, but there's a service called Augur that allows you to place bets, like on sports bets, for example. So you could bet that this team wins or that team wins, and people place bets on both sides, and Augur uses it's a decentralized betting platform where it doesn't run on anybody's computer, just like Bitcoin, so you can't actually stop anybody from being able to bet or running this bet. And eventually one of the team wins, and whichever team wins, the bet gets decided out and one side gets all the money. But in such a situation with bets, you can have a similar situation happen where if there's no time limit on it, you could end up with a bet that does not get filled for many, many, many years, and whatever little amount of money was put into it to begin with ends up being worth a considerable amount, to where let's say somebody might even want to influence the outcome of that bet. So just something to consider. But yeah, I just kind of thought it was kind of neat. Like, I'm looking at the map of the world in my living room right here, and I'm just thinking, someplace out there in whole bunch of tiny little spots, there is a secret Bitcoin stash that is only worth very little, but eventually that map will become a treasure map with a whole bunch of little X's worth quite a lot of money within a couple of years. So just another interesting future world we're going to be living in. So anyway, that's it for today, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.